Isaura Martins, a retired Portuguese and French teacher living near the Coimbra district in Portugal, began undergoing hemodialysis at the age of 17 due to kidney problems. Because of this condition, there were foods she was prohibited from consuming. One day, despite the restrictions, she couldn't resist and ate something she shouldn't have, resulting in a near-death experience, the famous NDE. She began to slowly lose her vision and hearing until she found herself near a place that, to her, seemed absurdly vast, with a feeling of immense relief and love for everyone. Hello, I'm Marcus, and it's a pleasure to welcome you here to Beyond the Life We Live. I hope you feel at home and absorb the lesson from this story we're about to share. While you're here, please leave a like and subscribe to the channel, as it's very important to us and helps us bring new and impactful stories to you. She recalls that when she was 17, newly started on hemodialysis, she was still adapting to the new reality. This was because with dialysis, it is necessary to follow an extremely strict diet, as certain foods, especially those high in potassium, can be fatal even though they are healthy for most people. Feeling depressed, like many young people, she wanted to eat the things she enjoyed, and despite knowing the risks, one day she gave in to the craving. At that time, the treatment was not as effective as it is today, as the blood was not as well purified. This meant that toxins and other harmful elements accumulated more intensely in the body. So, one night, despite knowing the risks, Isaura gave in to the craving for peanuts, a potassium-rich food she should have avoided at all costs. After eating them, she began to feel unwell while preparing to sleep. Suddenly, she started to experience muscle weakness, and without strength, she fell. Her family, noticing that something was wrong, tried to help, but Isaura was already gone, as she was taken to an unknown place where the beginning of her NDE occurred. On the other side, where her consciousness was, she noticed that she was gradually losing her vision, hearing, and everything around her turned dark. However, despite losing all physical consciousness, her mind remained quite active. Amidst total darkness, the strangest thing was realizing that her mind continued to live, even though her body seemed absent. Confused and scared, she began to wonder if this was death, and if she would remain in this darkness forever. After some time, Isaura realized she was above her body again in an unknown place, different from her home. But something strange was happening. She noticed figures around her, and these beings seemed to have the shape of people, but were not clearly visible, and their presence was unsettling. They came closer and closer, but Isaura couldn't identify faces or details, only hearing a murmur among them. Meanwhile, in the distance, she saw a light. She felt a strong attraction to this light and began to be drawn toward it, even though she didn't have a physical body. It was as if she were levitating or dragging herself toward the light, not feeling the ground or any surface around her. While feeling fear, she was also curious about what it meant. Hoping that someone or something would guide her, the figures remained around her, intensifying her unease. Then she began to hear them murmuring. Feeling increasingly trapped in this place, Isaura noticed that the longer she stayed, the more she seemed to grow attached to the environment. In a moment of desperation, feeling as if a hand was holding her, trying to keep her there, she made a move to push away this presence. Overcome with fear about what these figures really were, she began to cry out for help.
Help! Someone help me, please!
Although she didn't specifically call out to God, in her mind, with great intensity and emotion, she cried out,
Someone help me, please. Someone help me.
Then, almost immediately after this plea, she found herself in a different place, where two beings appeared. These beings were completely different from those she had perceived earlier and radiated intense light. They approached, with one slightly ahead of the other. Isaura tried to see the face of the one who seemed to be the main one, and the light emanating from them was so strong that it prevented a clear identification. Then one of them asked her, "Do you want to stay here?" Feeling that these beings were good entities, Isaura, although unable to speak physically, communicated mentally that she did not want to stay, explaining that she was still very young and had suffered a lot and wanted to live more, and therefore wanted to experience life until she found happiness. The being then said, "Well, anyway, it is not your time yet, so you can go." When the being of light said this, Isaura looked again to the right and saw, in the distance, a brightly lit space where there seemed to be people and lights in a beautiful and quite large place. The scene seemed pleasant, but when she asked the being what it was, he simply replied, "Go, Isaura." Confused, she mentioned that she didn't know how she had gotten there. The being then gently turned her around as if taking her by the shoulders and pushing her forward, indicating that she should move on. At that moment, she woke up. She was taken to the hemodialysis clinic for urgent treatment. She vaguely remembers the subsequent dialysis. During the trip to the hospital, she regained consciousness a few times, but fainted again. At the hospital, she remembered nothing, but at the dialysis clinic, after the treatment, she got up and commented on how good she felt before fainting again. Isaura believes that the episode was caused by the elevated potassium level in her blood, which can be fatal for dialysis patients. Her mother reported that the doctor at the dialysis clinic found her potassium level to be 9, an extremely high value, well above what is considered dangerous, as anything above 7 is already critical. However, the story doesn't end there. After her transplant, she had a cousin with whom she had a very strong bond, and this cousin was a nurse who passed away due to hepatitis. Despite undergoing a liver transplant, she did not survive the surgery. Isaura felt a great pain over the loss of her cousin, and during the funeral, which was crowded due to her cousin's popularity, Isaura had difficulty getting close to the casket to say goodbye. Desperate, she decided to step back and wait at the entrance of the church, resigned to the idea of not being able to see the body one last time. While waiting, something unexpected happened. She describes that she has no words to explain what followed. She felt an invisible force pulling her and making her walk. At first, she was terrified, but the feeling of peace gradually replaced the fear. As she walked under this force, which accompanied her, a soothing voice repeatedly told her to stay calm.
The fear of the passage should not disturb you. You have seen what exists beyond it. It is from there that you came, and it is where you will return at some point. And until then, you will never be alone.
This voice helped her accept the experience, understand that living is a gift given to all of us, and that for some reason, we must live it in the best way possible.